Welcome to the Mystery College Podcast. Today we'll be doing a continuation of our last talk where we'll be going into the soul mirror work through several comparative lenses, through different frameworks. In addition, we'll also in this talk be focusing on the practice of these things. We're going to be going much deeper into how do you actually execute on this? How do you analyze yourself and correct character imbalances and other forms of imbalance? How do you see that in society at writ large, in oneself, environment, and what's within our locus of control to change, what isn't? So we have Shreeram, Alex on the show. Welcome, guys.
And glad to be here. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are back with a vengeance, not Batman. So, like Jake said, today will be a continuation of our previous talk. Hopefully, we'll be able to cover in the short span of time that we have tonight, today, whichever it is, wherever you are, part of the world. The practical aspects of soul mirror work, stripped of any socio-religious accoutrements, if you will. Just a heads up, myself and Dr. Ram are still experiencing some little bit of issues with respect to the weather. So if anything amiss happens, it's either Thor came down and struck us down, or it's just a power outage. So please bear with us as you have been in the past podcast, and let's roll.
Good evening, guys, and good morning to everyone. So good morning, good evening, wherever you are. So we have been doing some podcasts in the last few days. So I hope today we might not have a power fluctuation, but still we are on red alert. So if something like that happens, bear with us. So today I would like to touch upon the topics that we covered previously, but let us examine and analyze these things. Now, let us see whether we can strip down all the dogmas or all the religious stuff within these exercises or within these principles. And let us see how we can apply them on a day-to-day life. I have given a few points in my last podcasts as well, but let us go. This is going to be a down-to-earth talk. So how we can apply these principles. And I also want to highlight the fact that you don't have to be a Shaivite to practice these principles, or what exactly it means to be a Shaivite. So we are going to be talking about all these things. So Alex,
Yes.
Hit me up with something.
All right. So here's the thing. A lot of the soul mirror work, whether it is established in an esoteric manner or addressed as a form of highly ritualized cathartic state, has been pre-established across all world religions since ancient times. This has been in existence since before, the dawn of writing, if you will, to the point where even early civilizations, 1 minute, if you guys can hear background noise, that is the pouring rain, so please forgive me and please bear with me. I'll draw closer to the mic. Okay, so where was I? Yes. So these practices have precedence in earlier civilizations going back to before the dawn of writing. In fact, one would not be remiss to assume that the earliest reasons for individuals, early human societies, if you will, to have partaken of entheogenic plants and other substances was to induce a cathartic state. Now, this state of catharsis would have allowed them to deal with aspects of either their personality, their environment, or their collective social milieu that would have given them a chance to flush out or draw out any deeply rooted trauma. Now, for the sake of the discussion, Cro-Magnons and early Homo sapiens probably did not have a word for trauma, but they lived in a very traumatic world with constant intertribal warfare, with nature going against them, with the elements and everything in between. And that's not an easy life to have. So the usage of entheogens and later the development of religious ritual in order to facilitate cathartic experience must have made their life far more bearable than it would normally have been without any of these things. But considering that now we are in 2025, Essentially, we are in the modern age with all of the computers and everything, the technology and the ever burgeoning presence of AI has to offer. Things are different now. So we have encountered a significant drop in the aptitude of humanity to be religious. So a lot of people nowadays identify more as spiritual, not religious. Even more people are now becoming agnostic or atheist, more so than whatever it was that their social milieu once pegged as their religion. And there's a good reason for this. In the modern age, the rituals of days past no longer applies. It's not as that is not to say it is not as potent or it is not as effective, but it is not as applicable as if we're, say, 50 years ago or 100 years ago or 1,500 years ago. The world simply is not the same anymore. But humanity still seeks the very same things that they've been looking for thousands of years before today, which is if and when they are going through something, if and when there are aspects of their personality that they need to face, or if and when there are parts of their personality that they cannot accept, they require a medium by which they are able to process this. A good example of a modern day application for ancient cathartic methods would be psychoanalysis. Dr. Ram would be perfectly Jake, and Dr. Ram would be perfectly aware of this. Another way is the writing in, if you will, of Western modalities into Eastern modes of thought, like meditation or yoga or tantra or whatever have you. But consider that a lot of the aspects of Western mindfulness or meditation ideology still is based predominantly on some other social cultural practice. It's still enmeshed in religion. So what I'd like for us to go over today is it actually possible? Is it practical? And is it feasible to completely just do away with all of the religious, accompaniment and just go at it practically, realistically, from a purely scientific or pragmatic point of view? Dr. Ram, if you will.
Okay. So I want to talk about a few things about rituals, magic, or you know what, these pujas, or what we call as Havan puja, etc. That is nothing but religious rites and rituals, like a home, fire sacrifices, etc. First, I need to talk about this because, see, throughout time, we have conducted these Vedic fire sacrifices or tantric sacrifices, whatever be the case. And at this point of time, still the tradition is thriving. It has been practiced throughout India, but people have lost the underlying foundation or the principles behind these practices. For example, fire sacrifices, right? So in a certain work on Shaivism, I think it was Rajanaga Jayarada again who gave this definition for fire sacrifices. I'm not going deeper into it. He says that Sarva Vikalpa Rudi Bhavanam Parameshwara Ivastiraha means Sarva Vikalpa means every thoughts. Every thoughts is rooted in the supreme consciousness alone. It arises, it takes repose, and it dissolves in the supreme consciousness. That is the self. And the external depiction of this process is called as homa or yaga, or the fire sacrifices. Number one. Again, certain people will argue that there are mentionings of animal sacrifices, like and Purushameda is human sacrifices. Animal sacrifices is also there. Yeah, then Ashwamedha yaga, that is a sacrifice of a horse, etc. So coming to these things, when you come to the Vedic tradition, Shaivite tradition is very much philosophical. Okay, it doesn't take anything literally. It is completely philosophical, as we have explained before. So coming back to Vedic tradition, there are two philosophical aspects of Vedas. One is the Upanishadic view, and another one is the Aranyaka. There is something called as Aranyaka. So these two are the philosophical aspects of Vedic Vedic system. So this Upanishads is completely based on the non-dual doctrines of Vedanta, which is based on Vedas. While Aranyaka directly reflects the rituals or the suktas or hymns of the Vedas, and it says that, for example, Ashwamedha should not be considered as a sacrifice of a horse. Instead, it should be considered as the movement of prana. What is prana here? The dynamic awareness. So the dynamic awareness, so realizing that the dynamic awareness is a manifestation of the self, or it is one with the consciousness. So that's why the term self-aware consciousness, which I've used, they are talking about this. Then again, then Purusha Meda. Purusha is nothing but the lesser ego, as I told you. Purusha. It is not literally a human being. Okay, so Purusha Meda is basically sacrifice of the lesser self for the awakening of the higher self, or inner resurrection. Or you can understand these from many other traditions as well. Okay, so but these teachings has been lost through time. So now whoever is doing these rituals, whoever doing these rites, they are not aware of the underlying principles. They are doing it mechanically. They are considering these things to be an external complete duality. To be honest, they are thinking that God is sitting up above and he is showering his blessings if we do fire sacrifice in his name. This is literally happening. So they are doing these for purposes of you know what, wealth, good fortune, etc. But they are not talking about, or they are not addressing the fact that these rituals, rites, were just an external symbol of the internal mind or the internal environment. How these were basically supposed to bring a change in the inner self. So too much of religious practices, or too much of religion in it, too much of dogma in it, has made these rites practices obsolete. Number one. Number two, they have moved away from the purpose. Are you getting the point? They have moved away from the purpose. So again, when we are talking about these kind of rites and rituals from a dogmatic perspective, this might not suit to a modern man. I'm not saying that it may not suit a person from another religious background. A Catholic might stay away from Shaivism. I'm not going into that. I'm just saying that a modern man who has a logical reasoning, a logical mind, he will consider these things to be absolute garbage.
I would also like to add, just so we have a broader perspective. When I inferred earlier that the modern consciousness is not quite as cut out for traditional aspects as ancient consciousness work, it has to be understood from a sociological perspective that society, in our society at large, there has become a certain degree of homogeneity among society. So if everyone will notice, and give me like a moment here, Dr. Ram. Nowadays, people are less who they are culturally, and they are who they are interculturally. I will explain. I'm speaking English right now. This is not my native tongue. Dr. Ram is speaking English to us right now. That is not his native tongue. We are dressed in the typical fashions of the Western mode. This is not our typical clothing. If we were still sociologically and culturally who and what we are, authentically, I would be, without a shirt right now. I would be bedecked in gold and silver and gemstones, and so would he. My hair would be to the goddamn floor. So would his, because that is who we are culturally. That is what we were 1,000 years ago. But today, that's not the case. Today, we are a metropolitan culture, an international culture. We still have aspects of our culture that is intrinsic to us: our language, our food, our ideologies, our religions. But the religions that come with our cultures come with certain rules. And some of those rules are mode of dress, diet, attitude, outlook, even outward presentation, that simply cannot persist or remain applicable in an international society. Can you imagine if I went to university today dressed, in a loincloth with a sword at my right hand, bedecked in gold and silver, with my hair to the floor? Would I actually be allowed to deliver a lecture on philosophy? No, I would not. They would bar me at the gate and I would not be allowed entry because that is not acceptable form within the context of that milieu. And it's the same for everywhere else. That's why you don't see samurai walking in the streets of Edo anymore. That's why you don't see Inuit people, still dressed in their original clothing. I mean, they still do when it comes to religious ceremony and religious ritual. But now there's a divide between what we consider ritualistic and what we consider pragmatic. But 100 years ago, there was no divide between the ritual and the pragmatic. It was all the same. We lived the life, we talked the talk, we walked the walk. That's not the same today. Dr. Ram, please continue.
Okay, so Alex explained things have changed over time. So over the last few centuries, we are no longer staunch practitioners of our culture, as he said, and that's a good thing. That is the reason why I am having a chat with Alex and Jake, who are living in another part of the world from where I am living. So that's a good thing. So now we need to look past these rituals, these symbols, these forms, and understand what made them possible. So again, we need to understand a simple fact that Shaivite literature were written in a language which was spoken during those days. So that's Sanskrit. So in order to understand that, you have to learn Sanskrit. But I'm not saying that unless and until you know Sanskrit, you are not a Shaivite, or in order to practice Shaivism, you don't have to learn Sanskrit. Okay. And you don't have to be a Shaivite or somebody who's learned in Sanskrit in order to practice these teachings. I will come to that. Because when I was talking about the Panchavaga Chakra and like Vyomeshwari or Kechari, Dikchari, Duchari, I was talking about the stages of awareness in its emanation, sustenance.
And there it is. Folks, we have power difficulty. Please bear with us. So while Dr. Ram is indisposed, these concepts and terminologies are simply how ancient societies would have turned things that today might be understood as trauma, depression, anxiety, psychosis, things like that.
Okay, so
Different
yeah,
words for different.
yeah, I lost the power and it came back suddenly. So I guess you can understand. Yeah, so coming back to that, um, again, I'm losing connection. Wait a minute, guys.
That's okay.
Yeah, okay. So am I audible now? Am I clear? Yeah, okay.
Yes,
You're
absolutely.
audible.
Absolutely.
So what I was saying is, you don't need to be a Shaivite to practice these teachings, as I said, because basically, if you look at these modern thoughts of mindfulness meditation or all those things, they all have their roots in these kind of ancient teachings as well, in religion or esoteric practices, etc. So one such work that I would like to quote here is Pratyabhijnana school of Shaivism, because they are completely pragmatic. It is written in Sanskrit because that was the spoken language. And Abhinavagupta, on the other hand, he has mentioned that dogma itself is limiting in nature. Dogma itself is limiting nature. Whatever the words that I am talking or whatever that I am saying, unless and until you use your sattarka or your own jnana, sattarka is logical reasoning, that is your own, what to say, yukti. Yukti is the term here. So means your own rational mind, it's futile to practice these teachings. So
Yeah,
whatever,
the Buddha said
yeah,
something along the same lines. Yeah.
yeah, same, yeah. So this shows the pragmatic mentality of these people who lived in 8th century. Now we are in 21st century. So you can understand that people who were living in 8th century had these kind of mentality. Are you getting the point? So coming back to that fact again. So for example, Ajaba Gayatri and Chakrodaya. Okay, you don't have to consider these names. Just understand that these are passive observation of thoughts. Passive observation of thoughts, and you are following the methods. But for your understanding, understand it as passive observation of thoughts or detached observation of thoughts. Number one. Number two, Chakrodaya. Again, you don't have to think that it is Chakrodaya, or just think that the rise of awareness or how your awareness works. Okay, you are just becoming aware of your own self. It's as simple as that. The stages of awareness. That is why I quoted the example of thinking about a cat and then jumping to a thought form of pen, and the interval between this is where the state of nirake exists. You can say it is an indeterminate state of awareness, okay, where our mind jumps from one object to another. And within this indeterminate state, you understand that you are the creative principle of your own thoughts. Okay, so this is how the projection of these objective realities comes into play in Shaivite thought. So if you strip away these terminologies, just strip it away. You don't have to follow these terminologies. Put the name. See, I would like to tell an example here. Okay, so basically, there was a friend of mine. Okay, I don't want to say his name. So he was a friend who was there, who was very close to me during med school, and now also he is very close to me. So he was reading novels by Dostoevsky. Are you getting the point? Dostoevsky. So these were Russian names. It was very difficult for him to remember. So what I did is that uh, you know what? He completely removed the Russian names. Okay. So instead of putting Karamazov, you can just say Tangapan. That is much more better for a person from Kerala.
Instead of saying Karamazov, then it's gonna be what, like Kangasila.
Yeah, some Indian name. So then it will be much more. Yeah. So exactly. So that's a very good example that I can tell. So it's easy for us to remember who is who. Are you getting the point?
There is nothing wrong with this. I would like to add, from an anthropological perspective, how even religion itself undergoes localization. So, for example, when Buddhism was carried from India to China and then from China to Japan, the adaptation of the Japanese to that specific form of Buddhism was distinctly Japanese in flavor, if you will forgive the term, because there was only one way for the Japanese to understand something that wasn't originally theirs: to turn something foreign into something local, which is normal. It's fine. We've been doing it for thousands of years.
And then again, so that's one thing. And another thing is that, see, whenever I say Shiva or Bhairava, even all around the world, we think about a person who has snake around his neck, who has a trident, who has a damaru drum, who is having a tiger skin as his tiger's hide as his clothing, all these things. But when it comes to agamic teachings, this is not how Shiva is addressed or Shakti is addressed. Whenever we talk about Shakti, it's feminine principle. No, there is no masculine or feminine principle. Okay, so agamic literatures are written in a manner where Shakti asks the question and Shiva answers. So again, the teachings go like this. So what is the principle of Shakti within ourselves? It is the hunger for knowledge. It is the never-ending pursuit of knowledge. And this is how the dynamic awareness works. It always seeks knowledge. It always seeks to answer the questions, raising questions and getting the answers. So what is Shiva? It is the consciousness. It is within ourselves. It is our own nature to find answers to the questions that we ask ourselves. Are you getting the point? So here, these are just symbols. So we have to look past these symbols. We have to go to the root of these teachings. That's what I'm trying to say. So just like instead of Karamazov, you can put Tangapan as the name. That's a Malayalam name. And again, coming back to this, instead of putting Shiva or Shakti, you can say consciousness and the awareness. Or you can, instead of saying Ajaba Gayatri, you are becoming detached observation of thoughts. You can call it like that. Or instead of Panjavaga Chakra, 5 stages of awareness. Getting the point? So this is, and I want the readers of the book to practice it like this, because the entire point is to show people that Indian tradition was not dogmatic. Whenever Indian tradition comes into question, people say they are dogmatic, ritualistic, and a lot of temples, a lot of rites, a lot of holidays. This is what they have in mind.
Same can be said for all religions.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Even I think there is something esoteric about Christianity as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And, everything that is enwrapped in dogma creates this attitude of gatekeeping, where I know a secret that only I can know and all of you are barred from knowing it. But will we ever actually truly progress as a society if we act like petulant 6-year-olds, keeping secrets that aren't really secrets? Huh?
Exactly. So I guess everything, even Masonic traditions are basically based on these teachings only. They have seen the underlying principles of it. Every religion evolved from these basic principles. That is my take. Okay. Even if you look at, there are multiple schools of thought in Indian tradition. If you look at Sankhya tradition, and let me come to this again once more. So this concept of 32 kalas that is seen in Srividya tradition or in tradition of Kali or Bhairava. It is also seen in Panjaratra tradition. Okay, even Vaishnavites practice it. Okay, the what the Narasimha mantra, which is 32 syllable, it basically corresponds to that, and the Vishwarupa Murti having 33 faces. Okay, 33 Vaktara, you can say these corresponds to that only. Even Vedic tradition has 33 deities, 32, 33. Okay, so all these came from Sankhya thought. Sankhya school of thought. Okay, Sankhya is the first epistemology in India. It is considered to be the first epistemology in India, written by Kapila. So it arose from that system, and Sankhya people doesn't believe in a god. Okay, so why even certain people say that it is a theistic doctrine? It is not
Atheistic.
exactly a theistic doctrine, because when it comes to Purusha and Prakriti, they don't bring a god in the evolution of Prakriti and the three gunas of Prakriti, that is Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. So it says that it is self-evolving in nature.
And a
The
lot of
nature,
people will think that that's, oh, it's God. Could be, not necessarily.
so we need to understand the nature of the God itself is evolution, or it's manifesting this. Are you getting the point? When we say God doesn't need a creator, we are just trying to understand. Even universe doesn't need a creator when we think like that. So at some point of time, these two principles overlap. When I say that we don't consider an external deity which creates a universe, but it's the deity itself manifests as the universe or evolves into universe, are you able to understand? It's a Spinoza's God, not a theistic God. You're getting the point. That is what the point of Shaivism is, and that is what Sankhya people is also saying. They didn't use the term Ishvara. They said that the nature of the Prakriti itself to evolve into the Panchatanmatra, Panchajnanendriya, Panchakarmendriya, and finally the Panchamahabhuta. So this is what they are saying. So again, there also a dogma never existed. When we go deeper into the Sankhya Karika doctrines, Sankhya Karika is a commentary on these on the Sankhya Darshana. When you go into that, we will understand that this is not, they are not mentioning a theistic God, it is a deistic God, or the universe itself has a self-evolving consciousness. So this is what they come to. This is exactly what Shaivism also comes into play. But why Shaivism evolved is because there were pseudo Vedantis who said that the cosmos is an illusion. Okay, number one. Number two, certain Kevala Vijnanavadis said that it is, they came to a, what to say, a nihilistic philosophy, saying that Shunyavada means nothingness. Okay, you're getting the point, the void state or the null state. So, in order to reconcile these two doctrines, this philosophy or these doctrines were necessary. So that is why they mentioned that the cosmos is not an illusion, and the consciousness is not nothingness, or what can say, its very nature is to manifest, its very nature is dynamic. You're getting the point. So the objective reality is a reflection of the subject. As such, it is not an illusion. So when the Maya Tattva comes into play, it says that Manyadidi Maya. Manyade means to measure is Maya. Okay, to rationalize or to make the infinite into finite. So we know that the number line or the number system, let us take that into example, it is infinite in nature, but we say 2, 3 units, 4 units, 4.5 units for our sake of understanding. The very same principle applies, that this one of multiple multitudes of objects that we perceive, or we distinguish them from one from each other, this is called as Maya according to the Shaivites. For Vedantis, I have already explained the Riju Sarpanyaya in one of the previous talk. So can you see the differences here? So this is what I'm saying. You don't need to you don't need to know about Maya, or you don't need to use the term Maya, or you don't need to say Manyadeti Maya, or you don't need to say Prakriti Purusha Tattva. Just understand that the self-aware consciousness. Okay. So this is exactly what is necessary in these teachings.
Absolutely, absolutely. I also wanted to transition what we're talking about with dogma, how say pan Indian beliefs are not based in dogma, but it's something that comes out of emergence, out of gatekeeping, out of power dynamics. I'm also curious about, and also the point made about linguistics and semantics. I'm curious about how this translates to the soul mirror work or people's self-reflection, about around gatekeeping, around uh, language barriers, around cultural barriers, like what Alex said about trans interculturalism. We're in a cosmopolitan society yeah.
So, so I will. So let me make the question clear. I will make sure that your question is clear to me first. So you are asking um, about the pragmatism in these systems, right? How to bypass or overcome the barriers of language or the barriers of these symbols for a Western person or a person who is outside this culture. Is that what you are asking?
Every other person outside of the pan-Indian state of
Okay.
collective consciousness. Yes.
Okay. So, okay, that's a good one. So I guess I've been touching upon this concept from the very beginning of the talk. When I said you don't have to say Kali, just understand that it is dynamic awareness, the nature of the self itself. So again, I'm telling once more. I'm telling. Uh, Sanskrit is a language that was spoken by my ancestors or people of that time in India. That's all. Okay, that's all. Okay, so whenever we are looking at symbols, try to understand that these are not external entities; they are symbols of a mind created. So that's where the Jungian archetypes comes into play. So you don't need to be religious to understand these archetypes. Number one. So at some point of time, these are all archetypes. For example, now I'm talking about a mantra. Okay, mantra. I will say cream. Cream is the Kali Bija. Again, I'm coming to this. So whenever cream is practiced, I have explained in my work how it should be understood. For example, ka. The ka sound represents the gross manifestation of the Prithvi Tattva or the earth element. That is the uh, physical world,
Physical world.
whatever that is. Yeah, the most physicalized form of the consciousness is ka. Then reem, cream. So ra here represents the sound represents basically the pramana tejas I mentioned. You don't have to think it as pramana tejas. It is a limited knowledge by which we are able to identify or distinguish between the objects. So I am talking that this is a cow, this is a horse. So this is cow has two horns, horse
Horse has
doesn't.
none,
You're getting
unless
the point.
it's a unicorn.
Yeah.
Because it has one.
So this distinction is made by our mind based on this principle called as pramana tejas. Again, I am using these terminologies because I am much more acquainted with these terminologies. You don't have to use it like that. So you can say that the instead of pramana tejas, you can say that the perception, the process of cognition. You can say that. Are you getting the point? So cream. And now E and sound comes. So E is Icha Shakti. Icha Shakti is the will to know here or the will to create. From a universal perspective, it is the will to manifest. Okay. From a lesser, from a microcosmos perspective, it is the will to know. You're getting the point. So the will to manifest the objective reality. So sounds the seminal power. What is the seminal power here? It is your own consciousness which has the ability to project these objective realities. Okay, you're getting the point, right? So whenever you are practicing cream, you don't have to practice cream, the sound as such. These phonemes are jam packed with these ideas.
Concepts, yeah, these
Yeah.
concepts, these philosophical concepts.
Yeah. So unless and until you know these ideas, there is no point in practicing them. And once you know these ideas, you don't have to practice cream. You have to contemplate on the fact, contemplate on the aspect of the mantra cream. You practice it like that. That is enough. Okay, and again coming back to the Pancha Mahabhuta, so or Jnanendriya or Karmendriya, I will say Shabda Sparsha Rasa Rupa Gandha. For example, when I say the nature of consciousness is dynamic in nature, or it is a dynamic awareness, so that is why it always moves. So Shaivites consider our legs the organs of locomotion, to be a manifestation of this dynamic nature. Okay, then the organs of action are given to our hand. Are you getting the point? So when the organs of action are said to be our hands, it shows the Kriya Shakti of the Supreme Principle. The ability to do, the ability to grasp things, to do things. So again, the Raga and the Niyati Tattva comes into play as well. So you don't have to say it is Raga and Niyati. Organs of action, ability to grasp, ability to do work. Just think it like that and contemplate on the fact of dynamic nature of awareness manifesting as our own ability to move from one place to another using our legs, our organs of locomotion. Okay, then when it comes to organs of procreation, it is a creative principle in a lesser aspect or in physicalized manner. Or when it comes to organs of excretion, again, why we have to include this? Organs of excretion is the ability
Body.
to, yeah. So when from a universal perspective or from a what to say,
Transcendentalist.
yeah, from a tattvic experience, what exactly it is? I'm talking about a concept. You are listening to it, you are assimilating it, and you are discarding the ideas that you don't want, or you are assimilating the idea, and I am also assimilating the idea that you are telling me. So this is what the organs of excretion really represent from a universal perspective or from a transcendental perspective. Sorry for that.
Bless you.
Yeah. So this is how we need to understand the ability to assimilate and the ability to discard what is not necessary manifests as the principle of organs of excretion. You can say that. Asta, pada, pani, payu, ubasta. We are talking about these 5 principles here. So the terminologies are just terminologies. That's all.
And this brings a very important point of discussion, because there will be people who will say, what are you people trying to say, that religions are all untrue? And here's the clincher. We are saying that all religions are true, because all religions offer the praxis to understanding our place in the world, our place within ourselves, and our place within each other's scope of awareness. So if we begin to think of all religions as a means to understand what it means to be, then all of these needless debates over which religion is true, which religion is false, which God is real, which God is not, it will not matter. Because at the end of the day, we are still just using language, symbolism, and by extension, culture as a means to understand the world.
Exactly that. And if you look at this, there are a lot of overlapping between the teachings of different religions. We know this.
Yeah.
For example, Mitras and Christ and Mitra of Indian tradition and Maitreya
Maitreya of the Buddhist
Buddhist
tradition.
tradition. All of them overlap. They are all solar deities in a manner. And again, we look at for example, some of the Vedic deities are demons in Persian
In
tradition.
Persian mythology, yes, or in Persian religions, Zoroastrianism.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's not a mythology; it's a religion. Zoroastrian.
Zoroastrianism. So okay, yeah. So we need to understand the overlap of these traditions. For example, when you talk about Indra and when we talk about Zeus, you said that you told me that his secret name is Diao.
Diaus. And then in India, there's a note. It's Dispater Diaus, and then later it would be adapted into the Latin Deus. So
Deus.
God, Deus, Diaus.
Mm.
Every time they say in nomine Patri Filii Spiritus Sancti, Aeternum Sanctum Deus Verbum, they're calling on that thing, and that thing has been around, for. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a thing that is manifest in a specific form. It's just a concept. The concept has been around for ages.
Again, in Indian tradition or in Vedic tradition, Dhyau is said to be Prajapati. Prajapati is the creative principle. Okay, he is called as Virada, he is called as Purusha, he is called as Prajapati, he is called as, in certain texts, he is called as the grand architect. Okay, Dhyau can be said as grand architect, the Vishwakarma, not the Vishwakarma that that is usually considered to be the propounder of Vastu Shastra. I'm talking about the grand architect. He is also called as Vishwakarma in that sense. So these are the names that is given to this principle. Okay, so all these principles, for example, Indra is said to be, the name Indra is, his name is Indra because he is the one who does Tranana of Indriya, means one who enlightens the organs of senses and organs of action. Jnanendriya, Karmendriya, and Ubendriya. So the 13 principles are, what to say, nourished, energized by one principle that is called as Indra. In Bhairavite tradition, he is called as Hohuka Bhairava. Hohuka Bhairava. So even within our traditions, different traditions, we use different names for the same principle. This is itself shows the diversity, but we are calling upon the same principle. So for a Westerner, you don't need to use these terminologies. Again, I'm telling you, understand the concepts, practice it, personalize them, and practice it, because pragmatism is, yeah.
Oh, please go ahead. Please continue.
So and again, coming back. Okay, now let me go a little deeper into the specific attribute of Indra, because Indra, one who nourishes, one who enlightens, or one who energizes the Indriyas. It is with the Indriyas that we are able to perceive the outside reality. From a transcendental perspective, the sense organs, or the organs of action and the organs of senses, and the three internal sense organs are said to be the one which manifests the objective reality. So that shows the creative principle. And Zeus is considered to be as a creative principle as well.
Creative principle. It's a cog. It's a. They're the same sort of deity within the Proto-Indo-European
Yeah.
contexts. They're both thunder gods. Indra was actually one of the kings of the gods before the rise of the Trimurti, which is Vishnu, Brahma, and Shiva. But if to use the same Indra analogy, and how, there is no better way to translate the turning of these terminologies into more accessible layman's terms than if you play with etymology itself. So consider how everyone knows what thunder means, right? Yeah. So the etymology of the word thunder is thundar, from Old English. Prior to that was the Nordic tur. Prior to that was an even older cognate of the word turn, thurur, or thurur. And then even earlier than that was the Proto-Indo-European Indrus or Indras. And even prior to that, Indr, Indras, Thurur, Thur, Thundur, Thundar, Thunder. To this day, we still use the word, and it dates back all the way to the earliest stretches of civilization. We have been doing the simplification and the normalization of something that 10,000 years ago would have been considered sacred or mystic. Now, every time you say, "Oh no, there's thunder in the sky," and I tell my children this whenever they ask, "So what causes thunder?" "Oh, it's just electrical activity that goes on in the sky with the positive and the negative collide. It creates a force, it creates sound, and it creates light. Light is the lightning, and then the sound is the thunder." And 1,000 years ago, they thought that it was the gods, Raijin and Fujin, beating drums in the sky. And in other cultures, it was the god Indra, blowing his war horn. Or in other cultures, it was Thor swinging his hammer around. But the gods are just symbols. That's what I tell them. And I tell them this for a very good reason. We're not trying to advocate that we forget that once upon a time we believed in gods. The belief in gods and the adherence to religion is integral to the human condition, just as it is integral to the human condition to be part of a society, to belong to a culture, to belong to a family, to belong to a sense of identity. That is part and parcel of us. We're not advocating for a completely atheistic perspective where all of these are just fancy words. What we're saying is we understand not just the literal interpretation of these things, but what they hold from a deeper perspective, and not in the mystical way, but in a way that can be applied so that we can be better people. Because consider this, if we are still using the same word for thunder today in 2005, that the ancient peoples from somewhere in the middle of Asia Minor, used 10,000 years ago, does it not seem a little bit more profound that we are still connected to that aspect of our humanity 10,000 years ago, persists to this day?
Yeah. So again, I have to say this. When you said the terms Hunda, thunder came from Hunda and Indra, and in Persian tradition, he's called as Under.
Yeah.
Under. So so if you look at even Vedic tradition, I talked about Upanishads and Aranyakas. These are two canonical works. There is also a literal interpretation of Vedas, which is called as Brahmanas. There is Shatapatha Brahmana, Gopatha Brahmana. Shatapatha Brahmana is concerned with the Ayurvedic tradition. So it is completely ritualistic. It is called as Karma Kanda. So when we are looking at this, there was a phase of transition from literal interpretation to literal ritualistic worship to more philosophical aspects of these principles. There was a transition, and these transition can still we can still appreciate them in the existing works that we have, from Brahmanas to Upanishads to Aranyakas. So why it is called Aranyakas? Because there is a certain concept. Okay, after you live your life as a family man, as everything, okay, then you become the head of the family, you become a grandfather or a grandmother, and then after that you will leave all these things and you will go for spiritual pursuits. Okay, after everything is over, during your old age, you will go for spiritual pursuits. So when you go for spiritual pursuits, they go to secluded places which are close to mountains, which are close to forest areas or jungles. So that is why Aranega meaning forest or jungles. It also reflects in that
Sannyasa practice. After you become a householder, then you become a
yeah.
recluse, a hermit, because your life is done.
Yeah. Now only spiritual practices. Okay. So that is why the philosophical aspect has been given importance. So we can see these transitions from a dualistic perspective, or from a simple mechanical external rituals and rites, to extreme philosophy. So a highly sophisticated philosophy, if you look at it. Okay, so again, this can be appreciated in Indian tradition as well.
Jake?
Yeah, not too many comments. Maybe my brain was thinking about geriatrics for some reason.
Why is that?
Why? How come?
I was thinking about the like cultural norms and the how householders transitioning into the like a forced tradition almost in spiritual. I was thinking about my grandparents and like how one of my grandparents spends most of his time in men's initiation circles doing to the best of his capabilities stuff with like the Mankind Project, trained to help provide some type of initiatory process for young men or men of all ages. Even there's even like people in their 80s doing this program, because like there isn't really any rite of passage for Western society writ large. Maybe in smaller ethnic groups.
There was. I mean, I would argue for the sake of parity that there was. The problem with how we view life at large nowadays is primarily a byproduct of the Industrial Revolution. And this is also one of the reasons why, going back to the previous point of the discussion, a majority of the religiosity that was attached to everyday life that applied 100 years ago is no longer applicable today, is precisely because of the Industrial Revolution. We are now no longer humans. We are cogs in the industrial machine. And the industrial machine demands that we produce and produce and produce. And at the end of the day, we get the sort of quasi-retirement. And even in our quasi-retirement, we are still expected to produce. This was not the case 100 years ago. This was not the case 1,000 years ago. Going back and, back then there was a clear demarcation between you start life as a child. You spend a good chunk of your life learning. and then you take the life of what is expected, a householder or what have you, or a warrior or a merchant or a craftsman or a tradesman or whatever. And then after all of the duties that you have, not just to your family and to your society, but also to your the world, or your milieu at large is complete, then you begin the final duty to yourself. But consider how in most Western society, they do not begin with the responsibility of the self to the other. They begin with the responsibility of the self to the self. And so they end up at the later stage of their life only with themselves, without the community, without a society to back them up. And this is where we find a lot of, like you said, geriatrics, not in the case of hopefully of your family, but in a lot of cases we find a lot of geriatrics in how do you say, the old folks home or retirement homes, where your family, your friends, they barely visit you. Why is that? How come that's the case? Because they begin life in a way that life shouldn't be begun. They begin life with a responsibility to themselves instead of life bearing a responsibility for the immediate other. And religious practices, regardless of whatever that religion may be, posit that the priority of an individual's life is to be lived in service of others. And then, and this is true of almost every religion across the world, only in the later stages of life do you begin to take on a more internalized aspect of perspective, wherein after you have done your duty to society and to the community, your duty to yourself is to understand God, or in this case, to understand those aspects of yourself that you have overlooked because you were far too busy doing shit for other people. And maybe we should go back to that. Maybe we should take pause and say, you know what? The industrialization of so many things have skewed our perspective. So much so that we have marketed spirituality without even understanding spirituality.
Yeah, and I really relate to what you shared too. I have some side of my families who are or were in geriatric facilities, and then I also have had family members who managed to stay connected or involved, health depending, and also like just being connected with friends, extended family network, and so forth. Another thing I wanted to add to the piece that you shared about these timelines and things being out of sync, if you will, especially in the West, is the commodification of time post-industrial revolution, during the industrial revolution, and the commodification of oneself as an accessory to the state, to the family for income. And there's always been some of that as the case, that we exchange time and other things for units of energy in the form of monetary units, whether that's silver, gold, or
salt, what have you.
Yeah. And then but there's two types of times that one of which is like a perennial time, like being in the spur of the moment, in the immediate now. That's what children tend to exist in, or animals, for example, not past, future, just the present and more immediate present, if you will. And then there's this sort of cognate, like calendar type of mind. We're in this.
We are there. We are there now.
We are there right now.
This is every human being everywhere across the world. My biological clock is ticking. My career clock is ticking. My academic clock is ticking. My everything is ticking. Is it really? Is it really?
Is it really?
I mean, you're growing old. Of course, everyone grows old. Everyone will die. That's not something to be afraid of. But consider, and I will make this. Hopefully people will. This will jar their mind. Hopefully. How many vacation days does an average human being in a Western or Westernized society have today? In a year?
I have not taken a single vacation over the last 10 12 years. It doesn't make a difference for me.
Well, you're living your life in service of other people. You're too busy being Jack the Ripper, so there's that.
Yeah.
No, but consider this. The average Westernized human being only gets approximately a month to 3 months of vacation tops in a developed country. and even in a quasi-developed, I want to say underdeveloped, but I might be assassinated. In a quasi-developed country like where I am, vacations are a luxury. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of people compare the drudgery of work to being a medieval serf. Yeah. They say, oh, I'm drudging through the fields. I'm like a medieval serf. I don't get the time to myself, and so on and so forth. It will surprise you to know that the average medieval serf who worked under a king or a count or a duke or what have you, who did not own any land but who worked the land of other people and who were paid in grain, not in coin, had on average 6 to 7 months in a year as vacation. Do you know why? Because they lived seasonally with the growth and the dying of whatever it was that they were planting and harvesting. If there was no planting and harvesting to be done, there was no work to be done. And what did they do when there was no work to be done? They did F all. Whatever. They danced, they drank, they procreated, they made art, they did crafts, they did things that made their lives wholesome. Why? Because their needs were within this scope. I have a place to stay. I have food to eat. I have clothes to wear. My children are well fed. I will not be butchered by a warlord. I am happy. Today, you have all the coin that you can imagine.
Yeah.
Enough. You still want the latest car, the latest phone, the latest gadget, a vacation to Cancun, 17 women throughout every imaginable time zone, and then extra, plus men everywhere on the side. Nobody is content. But they have far more than anybody else has had. Like, I mean, the average working person has had in the better part of 500 years. I watch a lot of fiction, and one excellent example of this was an adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula, done by Stephen Moffat, who was also the one who did the modernized adaptation of Sherlock. Benedict, what's his name? Cabbage Patch, that guy. I know how to say his last name. I will just say that he's Benedict Cabbage Patch. Sue me. Anyways, oh, also he cannot say the word penguins, so I have that over him. Anyways, in Moffat's adaptation of Dracula, Dracula says to one character there, because he appears in the modern day, as himself, as Dracula, not Vlad Tepes, but Dracula. He says, when he sees electric lights, how rich are you? When he sees a refrigerator stocked with food, are you nobility? Are you an aristocrat? You have fire that does not burn. You have food that is stored whenever you need it. You have entertainment at your beck and call. You must be rich. And then the individual that he was talking to says, not rich, I'm just working class. I have to clock in at work every day. I'm tired of living. And then Dracula thinks, where I'm from, where I was from, it would be fortunate for us, nobility, to have a room filled with light. Every other part of my frickin' castle is dark. If my food were not properly preserved, I would starve to death, and so would all of my subjects. We don't know how good we have it. We really don't.
Exactly. I would like to talk about something else here. When you are talking about, it reminded you of geriatrics and the geriatric problem. So you see, in India, there was this, I think you might know Miss World and Miss Universe, Aishwarya Rai. She was an icon a couple of decades back. So there was an interview, I don't remember her name, an American interview. She asked, do you guys still live with your parents? Like that. And then she would reply it like, I don't have to take an appointment to have dinner with them. Okay, so the sense of gratitude, one thing, consumerism has taken over. That is one of the problems. The greed, it is never enough. That's the one. thing. And another thing is that the sense of gratitude doesn't exist anymore. It's completely about boga. We call it as boga, that is consumerism, consumers world. So what happens is, I understand that I'm a doctor right now. I'm going to be a surgeon. I'm a surgeon. I'm going to be a successful surgeon. Definitely, I will become a successful surgeon. I owe this profession. I am here right now because of my mom and dad. Okay, mom and dad. So I have this sense of gratitude that I should take care of them. Okay. And you know what, my brother, he is a successful physician now, so he says that you come with me. Why you are living in this place? My mom is running her own business right now, so she cannot leave anytime soon. So he's telling my father, he's asking my father to live with him. He said, well, what you're going to do here? You're doing nothing, come live with me. So can you understand this? Can you picture the scenario in a western world? And I'm telling my mom and dad, why you have to, I am telling my mom, why you have to take a lot of, you know what, I'll be earning handsomely in a few months or in the next coming years, so why do you want to do this? You come with me, I'm asking you to come with me. So because I want to take care of them. This is not because that they did this for me. This is a certain sort of attachment towards them that has been cultivated from a very young age. Okay. So and as told you before, even our kids will have the compassion, the love of the grandparents. So they will be nurtured by the love of grandparents. So they will so that is necessary for an emotional development of the child as well. So I'm not looking now, let us keep everything aside. So how it is in the west now, Indians are also following the west. They are living away from from their parents. Now, you know what, they are migrating to western countries and western civilization, and they are forgetting their parents, and they will come back only when one of them dies. For their funeral rites, they will be coming back. Uh, so the world is changing, I understand that, but I guess this sense of gratitude and uh, it's
It's a
it's okay, yeah,
it's a
it's okay to stop and it's okay to think. So that is why I would like to tell here that we are in this rat race. We are forgetting who we really are. We are doing all these ugly things from morning to evening. We are working like a donkey for money, for things that we don't need in our lives. That's the ultimate truth. Okay. So and but we are not spending a single minute to reflect on who we are. We are not taking a single second to introspect ourselves, why we are doing this, what is the purpose of all this. So we are living a life where we have to grow, we have to get married, okay, born, we have to finish our school, we have to finish college, we have to settle in a good job, we have to earn a lot of money, we need our own car, we need our own home, get married, make children. This is a vicious circle. You cannot come out of it unless and until you take a minute. So instead of looking at it like that, I understand that the gift of life that I have, which has helped me to become who I am right now, is a gift given to me by my parents, by my father and mother. When we look at this and when we look at the limitless possibilities that we can do with this life, there is a change of perception. Are you getting the point here? So again, these teachings also help us to identify these flaws within ourselves. So it helps us to introspect what is going on, why we are doing this, what is the purpose of all this. So I would like to tell that there is no inherent purpose to it or inherent meaning to it unless and until you ascribe a certain meaning to it. But let me make one thing clear to all those people who are in this rat race. Do you really think that this rat race has some sort of meaning to it?
They will ascribe meaning to it, and for them, that's all they know. I mean, consider this: we would not be asking these questions if the practices that we have adopted, or in the case of Ram, he was raised in, did not influence us in a way that shifted our perspectives. Because had we been the stereotypical rat racy sort of people, this podcast would sound very different. This podcast would sound like, Ram saying, "Are, my mother is forcing me to get married." Hey, or it would be, you know what? The problem is most people don't actually ask that did anyone actually wish to be born? You know what? I'm gonna sue my father because I never asked to be born. Who asked to be born? Did you? Did anybody? No, but you see, there's a twisted sort of philosophy that is oriented in a very self-centered perspective of the world, where everything is out to serve you. And this is, you hear this a lot. I'm not gonna name names. I'm not gonna point fingers. But there are podcasts out there are talks out there's articles and books out there that are like, your parents should be sued because you didn't wish to be born. Who did? Who did, Karen? Who? Anywho, just to be fair, I don't want to paint the the westernized world in a broad like stroke. I don't want to paint it black, because what I notice is a very surprising phenomenon. Yeah, a lot of people from Eastern countries are now adopting and adapting Western sentimentalities. They're moving out of their home countries. They're going into westernized countries, adopting Western attitudes and Western habits and Western dress, consuming Western media, and so on and so forth. But you also have a large number of Western people who are moving out of their own countries, going to places like China, Thailand, the Philippines, Malaysia, and so on and so forth, because they have found the things in those cultures that is not present in their own, or rather in the absence of whatever culture that they supposedly should have had if they were more, intent on preserving it. And I don't mean this to say, I'm not here to talk about those individuals who go out of their way to go to third world countries to take advantage of the local population. I mean sincerely, there are a lot of Western people who are moving out from wherever they are in the world to be part of a culture that actually gives a damn about human life.
I understand that. So, so what do you think about these adversarial figures in religious contexts? For example, what do you think about that? Can you relate to these figures like Lucifer or Bhairava? Bhairava is also an adversary.
Bhairava is considered an adversary, yes, but
yeah.
There's the Brahmachara and the Dakshinachara. Yeah, it's complicated, but adversity is necessary for the sake of progress. There can be no progress without adversity. There is that. There's a lot of ways to interpret Lucifer, for example. Lucifer is representative of pride, and pride it's not necessarily always a bad thing, but it's also not always a good thing. It's nice to have a little pride, otherwise you'll be a dish rag. Like it's okay to give some part of yourself, especially if you want to show people that you care, but give over much of yourself and you become a doormat, and that's not a good thing. You can't always be selfless. You have to have a certain degree of pride. And before Christians come with pitchforks and halberds to assassinate me because they say that Jesus was completely selfless and whatnot, I would like to point out that this long-haired hippie decided to raise a ruckus in the temple of their god by appending tables and whipping people, because he says that the house of God is a house of worship, not a house of trade. That's pride. He is proud of the fact that they have a religion, that it was usurped under foreign rule. He did not want to see the usurpation of foreign rule in the place where his culture was practiced. And he said, F to that. You can't do this here. This is a place for us, not for them. That's why he says, give unto Caesar what is due to Caesar's, and give unto God what is due to God's. That's pride. And then, of course, there's the New Age movement. They're like, oh, just give off positive vibrations. Stay positive. I am going to positively impale you like Vlad Tepes did the Turks. There can be no progress and there can be no advancement if we're always about the positive. Just like nobody likes a negative person. This is why I don't have any friends, because I'm a very negative person.
I'm your
But
friend, Alex.
uh, I love you too, man. Full homo. Anywho, um, not a lot of people like negative people, because they're a downer. But try to hang out with an overly positive person. I had a friend who was an overly positive person, and we had a mutual friend who was just a regular, normal human being. And I pride myself in being the Debbie Downer of any friend group. If you come to me and say, "Oh, I've succeeded in this thing," I will say, "Oh, that's great. You're gonna die soon anyway. Good luck." That's just my sense of humor. Now, this mutual friend of ours had a close family relative pass away, and the first individual that she got in touch with was Miss Positive.
That's
So
great.
Miss Positive was like, "Oh, it's okay. It's just a transient part of life. Stay positive. You'll be just be happy about the fact that you got to spend time with them, that they were part of your life. Anyways, none of it matters because everything in life is transient, and we're all just spiritual beings on a journey."
So cancer is also transient.
Yeah, cancer is also transient, yeah. But that upset her, and they had a little argument. I can understand why it upset her, because in cases like that, you don't want positivism, you want empathy.
Mm.
And there's a lot to be said about only looking at things from a very singularistic perspective. And this is where the element of the adversary concept in most religions comes in. They offer a different perspective.
Mm.
They're the ones that say, "Wait a minute. You expect me to bow down before a thing that you made from mud? I was made of fire and light. I was breathed into existence through your voice, and you expect me to kowtow to these things?" You know what? Fast forward 5,000 years into the future, these things are going to fight over which you is you. So why would I kneel before that? I'm like, you know what? You're a whiny little B word. Get out of my house. And of course, the villain who was wise and be like, "You know what? You're an A word. I hate you. I will wage war against you. Come on, guys, let's roll. Let's get at it." That's necessary. It's integral.
So at the end of all this, we ended up fighting for a rabbit god instead of a duck god.
Yeah.
Getting a point. So how I look at these imageries like Lucifer or any adversarial figure. Okay, so I think the creator god in those religious contexts of this anti-cosmic Satanism or whether any of these kind of literatures, I have understood that this is an urge to break free from dogmatism, from fundamentalism, and from the vicious circle that we talked about earlier. So these figures represent a chaotic force which helps us to move forward or evolve further. Even in the Luciferian tradition or the Cain ben Samael, the Cainite traditions, which came, which is part of the Luciferian tradition
It
again.
is. It is. It's still a form of, technically speaking, it's still a form of Satanism, if you will.
Yeah. So at the core of these teachings, it is trying to get back to the limitless nature of the self. Okay, so the teachings might be twisted, it might be narrow-minded, but still at the core, this is the core principle.
Might
They
be or
got it.
absolutely.
Huh?
Might be or absolutely.
Yeah. So, I think this whatever that we talked about the consumerism right now, it has existed, or these problems have existed throughout the humanity ever since the human civilization started in one way or another, I think. Because if you look at this, my grandfather used to tell me that now these days youngsters are not listening to their elders. They're all they're doing whatever they want. They are not like the time that we like when we lived as a teenager. Yeah. So all people say this, but do you know what Socrates said? Somebody who lived before Christ, he said the youngsters are not
Same,
obedient,
same,
disciplined.
same shit.
Yeah.
Same
Can-
shit. Yeah,
so I think this has existed in one form or another. The form has transformed. That's all. I think it has existed in one form or another throughout human civilization.
it's very funny because here's one thing. As as someone who taught literature, it's always fun to put things into perspective for a lot of children whose scope and delineation of existence is skibbity toilet. So a lot of their parents will complain, "Oh, you're always on that phone. You don't do anything else but be on that phone." Fast forward, rewind to 1817, when elderly critics are like, and the latest craze amongst these youth is the conspicuous consumption of novels upon which they read in cafes and in other areas of leisure, whereby if you try to engage them in conversation, they ignore you. Oh, doesn't have to be a phone, it can be a novel. And then go back to the 1700s, and then they will say that the problem with the youth today is that they are far too enamored of music, that they no longer think about the finer aspects such as etiquette or conversation. Okay, so before books there's me. So it's
Yeah, and during my childhood days, we were crazy about cricket. Okay, we used to during vacations we used to play cricket from morning to evening. By the time the sun rises, we will go to play at 6 o'clock in the morning, and then we will come back for lunch, drink water, and then go back again, and then we will play again till the sun sets. So people were saying, you know what, many, even my grandfather has scolded me for that. He used to say he's doing nothing, he's playing cricket from morning to evening. Now these kids are on the phone. Now they are saying he's always on the phone, he's not getting out of the home. So
and 50 years from now, you're always on that virtual reality.
so this is gonna exist. So I guess that is why we need to have these teachings. You know what, the cloud or the fog or the confusion is what we are facing. This turmoil, in order to overcome this turmoil, I guess these teachings are necessary. Not in a dogmatic manner. I'm not saying religion, I'm not saying spirituality. From a total pragmatic view, we need to know who we are. We need to introspect ourselves.
Is there any? So we've gone through the technicalities of how many of the world's religions simply use their symbols, their archetypes, their rituals, and their doctrines as code words, if you will, for a way to understanding the world, oneself, and one's place in society. So, would you be able, Dr. Ram, to provide a very simple 2 minute? I say 2 minute because the attention span of people nowadays, you know what I mean. A simple 2 minute exercise that they can integrate into their daily life. Because if you wake up in the morning and you spend 5 minutes, you might as well spend 2 minutes doing something far more worthwhile. Am I right? Yeah. So, a 2 minute exercise upon waking and before sleeping, where they are able to strip away at the preconceived notions of self, the preconceived notions that they have about society, and whatever other maya that may keep their consciousness and their capacity to evolve as humans at bay.
Well, I have a solution for this. There is something that I practiced.
It's not drugs, kids. Don't do
Yeah.
drugs.
And I still practice it now these days. See, whenever we are doing a task, this can be done throughout the day. Whatever the task we are doing, it's better to get completely involved with it, but it's easily said than done. Okay. So when I'm talking to you, I'm completely concentrated on the present moment. I'm not thinking about my past or future right now. I am completely present at the moment. That's why we are able to have this conversation. But most of the time, when we are doing this industrial age, when we are doing a job, our thoughts would be somewhere else. Mano anavastha, I used to say. So our mind is somewhere else, and we are doing it mechanically. This should not happen. So we should be present at the moment. We should do whatever we are doing with full focus on. that specific task. For example, I have found this much more in operating theaters. Number one, you have to be completely present. Obviously, you will be present there. You cannot think about what I'm going to drink in the evening, what kind of dinner I'm going to have, and you can cut open a person and you can think about it. Okay, even I'm not talking about some, uh, what cardiothoracic surgeries, even a simple proctology surgery that we used to do during our residency. We need to be present in the moment in order to make sure that nothing goes wrong. So this is one thing. So trying to understand that whatever we are doing, we should be present on that, on the present. That's all. Our mind should be on the present. It should not be wavering from one point to another. But it's not easy. So how we start? When we wake up, just try to become aware of what we are going to do on the entire day. Just be aware. And try to be aware of what you are doing whenever you are doing a task. Try your best. So eventually it will be difficult, but you will be able to successfully do it once you get a hang of it, once you practice it regularly. It won't be practice anymore after a while. It will be like breathing. Okay, it will be as easy as breathing. And after everything is done, when you go back to the bed, just close your eyes and think about what all you have done throughout the day, and become aware of all the tasks that you have performed, all the activities that you have done, and then go to sleep. Do it every day. It will become as easy as breathing, like I told you. Through this, we will understand or become aware of the self, that ultimately it's the self performing the tasks. So we will have a change of perspective. We will have how we perceive the world. It will be changed. No longer trapped into this, this narrow mentality. We'll be able to see the grand scheme of things. That is why the what if lumberjack becomes enlightened spiritually? What will he be doing after that? He will still be a lumberjack.
Still be a lumberjack.
So,
This reminds me of a lovely poem written by the Zen Buddhist monk Takuan Soho, Japanese guy. He says, before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. The way to enlightenment is this: chop wood and carry water.
yeah, just two sentences, but there is a lot of what to say, wisdom within those sentences. So this is what we need to understand. So as such, many of you know what I used to talk about these Shaivite principles to many before. Okay, some of my close friends, some of the people that I met through social media, they used to ask how to balance materialism and spirituality, how to practice these principles by having a materialistic life. I told them I don't understand the difference between materialism and spirituality here.
There is no difference.
Yeah, because whatever you are doing, as I told in my first talk, that whatever the evolution, the spiritual evolution that has taken place, it will reflect in the materialistic world. So that means all these practices ultimately help me to do what I do in a much more better manner, in a much more better understanding of what I'm doing. So this is the purpose of it. So and everyone should understand this. Whenever we are practicing the tattvas or the Panchamahabhutas, we are not supposed to think that I'm going to bend fire or air outside my body. That is not the purpose of it. It is to understand that the will and the knowledge aspect manifesting within ourselves in an objective world. So, uh, are you getting the point? Okay, and whenever we are meditating on the principle of Shreerama, so Shreerama is a deity. I think you know Shreerama, and
That's
you know
you.
what? Yeah, and a lot of ruckus went on this principle or about Ramakshetra or Rama temple in Ayodhya over the last 3 decades, and finally we got a temple. So, what exactly this principle depicts from a classical perspective? I'm talking what the Panjaratra Agama is saying. So he has mentioned that Ravana, the demon or the demon king, his 10 heads represents the Panjanyanendriya and Panchakarmendriya. And the arrow that Rama shot is the arrow of knowledge. You're getting the point. So that means it is a certain inner refinement that takes place in the 10 senses or in the perception. so that you have a clarity of what you're doing. So complete awareness of your actions. That is what we need to develop. So become aware of your actions. Be in the present moment. Don't think about past and future. We cannot live in the past and future. That's the ultimate truth. Now we can only live in the present. That's a fact, right? So understand this and be aware, completely be involved with your current tasks. That is the first step to start. So I guess this is a 2-minute exercise that everyone can do.
Well, you can learn from the past and
Mm,
you can prepare for the future, but you cannot live in either of those states because
mm,
there's only now. I would like to add to the exercise that you've suggested, um, and I will strip it even further so it's completely butt naked. Because a lot of people, sometimes even philosophy can be overmuch. And I
mm,
say this with all sympathy to individuals who are neurodivergent. When too much information overload, too much sensory overload, too much everything overload. Now, a lot of people can argue that, oh, this is just another byproduct of the West. This is just another byproduct of this and that. There's science to back it up. There's research to back it up, and let's leave it at that. So for individuals who feel that even the philosophical contemplation of awareness, of being aware, is far too much to process, we can still do the same things that Dr. Ram has suggested in an even more simplified manner. When you wake up in the morning, as you will always do unless you're dead, the first thing that you will do is to just lie down wherever it is that you're sleeping and feel the surface of that place. That's all that you need to do. Breathe in, breathe out, just feel wherever it is that you're laying down on. It can be a mattress, it can be wood, it can be an ice block, it can be a coffin. If you are accidentally buried alive, chances are you won't be. But if you are, then, I'm sorry for you. Whatever surface that may be, or, if you're floating because you're like that powerful or a super saiyan, good for you. Just feel that place because that allows you to take stock, to empty your mind, and to be, just be. And when you wake up, when you rise after that state, you will handle everything else around your day differently. And I know this because I'm part of the rat race. Life is hectic. Life was hectic when I was in academia. Life is still hectic today. But of recent years, I've tried to make it a habit that upon waking up, I just lie there for 2 minutes, thinking about nothing, doing nothing, just being there. And then I rise up. I do my morning observations, my prayers, what have you, whatever you like to call it. I go down and I brew a cup of tea. But I don't just brew tea mindlessly. No. I focus on, is the water boiling? Is it now the right temperature? How much tea did I put in the teapot? How much water do I add to the pot? Did I brew it for long enough and for a specific amount of time that it's just the right strength and the right intensity that I would prefer? I pour the tea knowingly into the cup. I sit down and then I gauge the temperature of it in my hands, completely aware. Is it too hot? Has it gone too cold? I light a pipe. I you know, intentionally stuff tobacco into a bowl, take a match, light it, sit down, drink my tea. That's how I begin my day. Now, you may think these are all mundane things. I do this every day. How many of you do this every day knowingly? A lot of people go about their day mindlessly. They go about the motions. That's the term that they use in movies, in television, in books. We go about the motions of life. We don't live life. So even if we do away with the philosophy, even if we do away with all of the fancy words, if we just do things mindfully for what we're supposed to experience at that moment, these things will become habit the more that you repeat it. And the more it becomes habit, the more it bleeds into every aspect of your life. It starts with the waking up. and then with the preparing for your morning meals, your morning tea, your morning coffee, your morning whatever. And then it bleeds into how you deal with the individuals that you meet throughout your day. It will no longer just be going through the motions of, hi, hello, how are you? Here's my day. That's your day. You will be there intent on that other human being and how they are and who they are and what they feel and what they think. And then after you go home at night, your day is done, your work is done, everything. When you lie down and do nothing, you will have accomplished what 90% of the human population do not accomplish throughout all of their lifetimes. To live in the moment, mindfully, and with the awareness that their life is worth living.
That's a much more better explanation, Alex. Thanks for that.
No, it's all bull, really.
Okay, so I guess that's it for today.
Yeah. Little heads up. Dr. Ram will be starting his residency soon. Everyone, wish him luck and more people to cut open.
Thank you.
Good luck, Ram, and we hope that, well, you probably will be preoccupied for quite a long while yet. But ladies, gentlemen, and everything else in between, Dr. Ram will have more books in the making because, like a true-blooded Asian that he is, he relaxes by not relaxing. So he will have more books in the making. Stay tuned for that. We will be reviewing that. We will be mentioning. We will be shout outs, reviews, podcasts on all of those topics and so much more. And when he's finally free to return to his two pining, sad, depressed mistresses that miss him so much, we will have more podcasts again because threesomes are the best. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. And we hope to have you again soon for even more fun, more insights, and more inspiring outlooks on life, esotericism, and everything in general. Jake?
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys. Pleasure having you on and speaking and discussing these amazing topics. Fantastic guest, Shreeram, and we welcome you again next time.
Take care, guys. We'll see you soon.
Sure. Good night. And have a nice day, Jake. And good night wherever you are.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's good night, right, Alex?
It's good night. Sun's
Oh.
dead.
Yeah, thank you. We'll meet up soon.